In the shadow of war, when rations were thin and luxuries vanished, entire families learned to turn scraps into meals, stretch a week's worth of food into a month, and survive on creativity as much as courage. Kitchens became battlefields of their own, where every spoonful mattered and every recipe told a story of resilience. Imagine the blackout curtains drawn tight, the air faintly smelling of coal smoke, and the sound of the radio crackling with news from the front. Dinner wasn't about indulgence. It was about survival, ingenuity, and the will to keep going. Today, in an age of overflowing supermarkets, these recipes may seem like relics. But in times of crisis, they could become the difference between going hungry and thriving. What you're about to discover are not just dishes. They are the edible memories of a generation that faced scarcity head-on. These 12 recipes, born from the kitchens of the 1940s, have been almost forgotten, yet they carry with them a quiet power. They can feed you when the shelves are bare, teach you how to make the most from almost nothing, and connect you to the grit and determination of the past. Let's step into that world. When flour was precious and butter scarce, potato peel pie became a wartime staple. The humble peels, often discarded today, were boiled, mashed and pressed into a crust, filled with whatever vegetables or meat scraps could be spared, then baked into something hearty enough to fill a family's stomachs. It was a dish born entirely from thrift, proving that waste was a luxury no one could afford. In a modern context, this recipe is still a marvel. You can turn compost bin scraps into a satisfying, nutritious pie with just a little salt water and a hot oven. Named after Lord Woolton, Britain's Minister of Food, this pie became famous for its ability to stretch meagre rations. It contained no meat at all, just root vegetables like carrots, turnips and potatoes, topped with a crust of wholemeal pastry. Served in homes and cafes alike, it showed the public that even in lean times, flavour and sustenance could go hand in hand. Its beauty lies in flexibility. Swap in whatever seasonal vegetables you have, and you have a filling meal that keeps for days. Poultry was often reserved for the troops or the wealthy, so homemakers invented what they called mock goose, which was basically a baked casserole of potatoes layered with onions and a smear of sage stuffing to mimic the flavour of roast goose. The trick, really, was in the seasoning. The right herbs could convince your palate you were eating something far richer. In today's uncertain times, this is a lesson worth keeping in mind. Flavour can be recreated, even when the main ingredient is missing. Sugar was rationed so tightly that sweet treats became almost mythical, you know. Carrot marmalade offered a bright, sweet spread without draining those precious sugar coupons. Boiled carrots were mashed and combined with citrus zest, creating a vibrant preserve that really brightened up toast or porridge. Not only was it delicious, but it also delivered vitamins badly needed during the war. These days, it's a perfect way to store root crops for months without refrigeration. In Britain, the government ordered all bakeries to produce a single standardised loaf made from wholemeal flour. This national loaf was dense, slightly coarse, and far more nutritious than white bread. It filled bellies and provided much-needed fibre, though, to be honest, many disliked its heavy texture. Yet its practicality was unmatched. It kept longer, used all parts of the grain, and reduced waste from refined flour. Baking one now offers both nutrition and, well, a tangible link to wartime kitchens. Canned meat was one of the few reliable protein sources available, shipped in bulk from overseas. Corned beef hash, made by frying tinned beef with diced potatoes and onions, was quick, filling, and needed no fresh meat. Its simplicity made it a staple for families who needed to feed several mouths with minimal cooking fuel. It remains a crisis-proof recipe. You can store the ingredients for years. Oats weren't just for breakfast. Wartime cooks learned to make oatmeal soup by boiling oats with chopped leeks, carrots, and a pinch of salt. It thickened into a warming, stick-to-your-bones broth that could be stretched endlessly with more water and vegetables. Cheap, filling, and endlessly adaptable, it's proof that grains can anchor a diet even when everything else runs short. With food imports under siege, many families grew their own vegetables in victory gardens. The harvest often went straight into a pot. Whatever was ripe went in, from beans and kale to turnips and onions. The stew simmered slowly, producing a deep, earthy flavour without meat. Its magic was in adaptability. You could never make it exactly the same way twice, and that was part of its charm. Eggs were a rare treat. So, bakers turned to vinegar baking soda and mashed fruit to create cakes that rose without them. Chocolate-flavoured versions were popular, using just a little cocoa powder to make a small luxury stretch. These cakes really showed that even in scarcity, creativity could keep morale high. And today, the method is a gift to anyone dealing with shortages or dietary restrictions. With fresh cream, virtually impossible to find, folks got creative and whipped up a simple mixture of flour, margarine, milk and sugar to make what they called mock cream. While honestly it lacked the richness of real dairy cream, it was good enough to fill sponge cakes or top off puddings. It's really a testament to resourcefulness, how taste and texture could be, faked with some clever combinations. Dried peas were cheap. They stored well and provided a bit of protein when meat was scarce. Pea soup, simmered until it was thick and smooth, became a common sight in wartime homes. Sometimes, if you were lucky, a ham bone might be thrown in for a bit of flavour, but even plain, it offered warmth and sustenance. The fact that dried peas could last for years made them a real pantry essential. Spices from the far reaches of the British Empire, they occasionally found their way into wartime kitchens, inspiring dishes like root vegetable curry. Potatoes, parsnips and carrots were stewed together with curry powder and onions, turning humble ingredients into something a bit more vibrant. It was a rare reminder of the wider world during a time when honestly most meals were rather plain. These recipes, they're more than just cooking instructions. They're survival manuals written in the language of food, forged in an era when, truly, every crumb counted. They show that hunger can sharpen the mind as well as the appetite, and that the human spirit will always find a way to turn scarcity into sustenance. Whether you try one as a link to history or just keep them in your back pocket for uncertain times, they carry the wisdom of people who refuse to let hardship break them. If these wartime kitchens could speak, they'd tell you that resilience is as much a part of the recipe as potatoes, flour, or salt. They'd remind you that in every crisis, past or future, knowledge is the ingredient that keeps you fed. If you found this journey into history's kitchens valuable, do make sure to subscribe to In the Beginning and share this with others who love learning from the past. These recipes fed a generation through one of humanity's darkest chapters. They just might feed you through the next one.